So if Aaron Fletcher gets a horse, he's going to be able to walk it all over town.
No, it has to be
Has to be what?
reasonable and prudent.
Well, but your point is that somebody who wanted to challenge the ordinance
Yes.
could just ride a horse someplace, and then a police officer would have to be called and cite him as this is not reasonable and prudent.
Right.
And this is a question to the city attorney. Is this a kind of a flaw in the way we're approaching this?
Council approved this on the 3rd of November. This concerns precluding farm animals from our city right-of-ways. There was conversation at first reading about possibly creating an exemption altogether for horses, or asking staff to come back with some proposal, which we have done. We initially looked at maybe some kind of geographic definition that you would exempt horses from, but in talking with planning, we could not figure out a way that really made sense with any of our other sort of geographic designations. So what we've ended up proposing is basically a reasonable and prudent standard, and says, except as otherwise permitted by this ordinance, no person shall drive, ride, or lead livestock or wild animals in any street, public right-of-way, or city park, except under the terms of a valid special use permit issued by the city administrator. And then that exception reads, in addition to the requirements of ORS 814.150, which concerns some things you should not do with horses by state law, a person may ride or lead one horse without obtaining a special use permit, provided the activity is reasonable and prudent, having due regard to all of the following: A, the traffic; B, the surface and width of the highway; C, the hazard at intersections; D, weather; and E, visibility. And the notion is that policeman understands pretty much what prudent and what reasonable and prudent means, and can interpret it with respect to horses as well.
And there's nothing about what the horses leave behind to be taken into consideration.
So what about a person riding a mule?
Well, as it's written, the mule is not exempted, a horse is.
That seems a bit arbitrary. I
Well, we can exempt mules too if you want.
well, I mean,
Yeah, hey.
I think that you should exempt mules if you're going to exempt horses.
Well, that's,
Motion.
if you want to make an amendment, that would be fine.
I would amend that mules be allowed to be ridden in the city where it is reasonable and prudent for horses to be ridden in the city.
Okay, we have a motion to amend at second reading this ordinance.
So would it be acceptable then to simply add into the language that I read to you earlier, where it says, in addition to requirements of ORS 814.150, a person may ride or lead one horse or one mule without obtaining a special
We need to
permit?
have a second on the motion.
I'm sorry?
We need to have a second on the motion.
Yeah, we don't have a second to that motion, but
Yeah.
I'm proposing
I'll second that
the
motion.
wording of the motion.
Thank you.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded, but the city attorney is proposing a simpler wording.
Yeah.
That acceptable?
That's acceptable.
This is
Sure.
second reading language.
I'm sorry?
It's second reading, we need to have the language, I need to be able to, right?
I just read it.
Barb, what's the point?
I didn't get it, but that's okay.
Well,
Then
it's in.
let's take the time and make sure you get it, that's
Okay.
all.
Is it in your communication?
It's in the ordinance itself, it's highlighted in the ordinance itself. Anything that's new from the first reading to the
Okay, I
second
got
reading
that,
is
but the
highlighted.
mule, the amendment part here.
We're adding the words "or one mule."
Okay, that's what I
That's
needed to
what we
know. It sounded a
needed.
little more complicated than that.
Good, that's good.
Thank you.
No ferrets. Dave,
Was there a second? I didn't.
oh, yeah, Pam seconded. Dave Cantor, do you want to get into this fray?
No, I'll withhold any comment until after you vote on the amendment.
Okay, good. We look forward to that comment. Carol, do you want to speak to the motion?
I do. Well, I have a question.
Well, go ahead.
I don't understand, how is this going to be enforced?
Somebody calls up the police
So it's going
department
to
and
be
says somebody's
complaint-driven, correct? So if Aaron Fletcher gets a horse, he's going to be able to walk it all over town?
No, it has to be
Has to be what?
reasonable and prudent.
Well, but your point is that somebody who wanted to challenge the ordinance
Yes.
could just ride a horse someplace, and then a police officer would have to be called and cite him as this is not reasonable and prudent.
Right.
And this is a question to the city attorney. Is this a kind of a flaw in the way we're approaching this?
I'm not sure I'd describe it as a flaw. We are creating an exemption. It was proposed that we create an exemption for horses, and originally, the exemption was an entire exemption. This one is a limited one, because it has to be, the use of the horse under the circumstances has to be reasonable and prudent. But could there be a horse coming down Oak Street under this? Yes. But it sounded like that's what the council wanted to consider.
It's funny that we're going to these extremes to permit things and not permit things, and then we're using this generic old rule of law to define how we're going to enforce it. And if we really could enforce it, we wouldn't need really any of the ordinance, which is funny that.
Well, that's a bit of a leap.
Well, it is a leap, but it takes me back to a lot of years ago when the common sense side of it replaced a lot of the laws, and we seem to be almost getting there, but now we're going backwards to make a change. Because, I mean, the basic speed law was around forever. I don't even remember when it went away, but I do remember it going away. And so now we're making all these exceptions, but we're going to do an enforcement that's kind of odd.
I think we should vote.
Call for the question.
It's too late. I called for the vote.
Okay, good.
Roll call, please.
Okay. Marsh?
Yes.
Rosenthal?
Yes.
Boyson?
No.
Morris?
Yes.
Seffinger?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Was that
No, that was an amendment.
Buell amendment?
That was the amendment.
Oh, that was the mule amendment. I'm sorry. Okay. Now can we vote on the,
No,
Dave?
I don't believe we have a motion, which I'd be happy to.
The ordinance as amended.
Okay, we got it. Now, may I have a roll call vote on the main motion as amended?
There is
I
no
don't have a
motion.
motion yet.
How did we amend it?
I'm sorry. I thought we had a motion. How could we amend a motion that we don't have?
The city attorney read the changes that were at second reading.
Yeah,
There was a motion to amend the ordinance, another motion to amend the ordinance to include "or mule" in the language of 9.08.
and didn't we voted on that?
And you did. Now you need to vote, make a motion to approve the ordinance as amended.
Thought that's what I said, but, okay, may I have, will someone make a motion?
I move to approve the second reading of an ordinance titled, an ordinance amending AMC 908010 and 908040 concerning keeping of animals as amended, and adopt the ordinance.
Second.
Masterful. Roll call, please.
Marsh?
Yes.
Rosenthal?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
Seffinger?
Yes.
Boyson?
No.
Okay. Now we'll be straight. Then it's going to go much more smoothly from here on out. Sure. Okay, number 2, second reading by title only of an ordinance titled, an ordinance amending AMC Chapter 916 to require dog licensing and declare certain dog behaviors to be public nuisances.